A good Sunday morning to you, and many thanks for joining us on Inside Politics. It is the 9th day of August 2020, and we have plenty to talk about today. This Sunday, we'll focus on the latest state appointments by President Uhuru Kenyatta that have continued to elicit much debate among Kenyans. Among other appointments, President Kenyatta has put the country's rail, ports and pipeline operations under one mega corporation, the Industrial and Commercial Development Corporation, raising eyebrows over what looks like efforts to re-centralize governance. In realpolitik, Jubilee Vice Chairman David Murathe has told the country to prepare for a Raila Odinga presidency come 2022. What does the country think about this massive endorsement? In the meantime, the Senate is preparing to try for an 8th time to resolve the county revenue sharing formula this coming week. They have promised Kenyans that they will finally come up with a winning formula, but they cannot even agree on the mediation committee. 1 man, 1 shilling or win-win. And about 150 former members of parliament could be earning 100,000 shillings per month for life if the president assents to a bill passed by your members of parliament last week. I'm Ben Kitili, live at the KTN News Center in Nairobi. Welcome to Kenya's premier Sunday morning political broadcast. This is Inside Politics. Let me tell you who my panelists are this morning. I have with me humanitarian and development consultant Jerotich Sei, back with us after a few weeks away, of course. We also have Mark Bichache, communication strategist, and we have Dismas Mokua, political risk analyst. We'll be joined later on by lawyer and political strategist Kipchumba Karori. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and many thanks for joining us today. Chero, let me start with you to welcome you back to the show. You have been away, of course. We want to say how glad we are to have you back on the show and how grateful we are. You know, you took, of course, you took this matter of COVID-19 and went public with it to deal with a lot of stigma that has been seen in recent weeks. How have you been feeling?
Hey, thank you, Ben, and good to see all of you again. Thanks so much for your wishes and the wishes from all Kenyans while I am recovering from COVID-19. Yes, indeed. Actually, this is my 27th day of isolation. I started off quarantining, and then when I tested positive for COVID, then I went into isolation. So 27 days now, I have been isolated and recovering from COVID. I was not asymptomatic. I had symptoms. So I was sick. And when I look back now, I really was unwell. But I am grateful that I did not end up having to need to go to hospital. So I have had 2 tests for COVID, and the second test that I took on Wednesday, I tested positive again. So twice now I have tested positive for COVID. And although my symptoms are almost completely gone, I can say that for sure I will not take risks. I will not put my family or anybody else at risk. I will protect myself and protect others until I test negative. But I must say I am feeling so much better, and I would urge Kenyans to wear their masks whenever they can. This thing is real. It's not a conspiracy. Maybe its handling has not been correct, and I've been the first one to speak about it. But in terms of the reality of COVID and its potential impact and effect on you, your family, we must take this very seriously. But I'm grateful and I'm happy. I'm almost symptom-free, and I look forward to the next test, which I hope will give me a negative result.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. We are glad to have you back on the show, and of course, we're glad to have you well and looking out for everyone else. Welcome back. Now, let's get into it. In what has triggered debate among Kenyans, several political and civil retirees have been appointed to head different state corporations. Names like Kilemi Mwiria, former EACC CEO Alahe Wako, and former Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Alex Ole Magelo have found their way back into the system. President Kenyatta has also created the Kenya Transport and Logistics Network, bringing together rail, pipeline and port operations under one mega corporation. Is the president re-centralizing governance? Here's KTN's Ibrahim Karanjo with the latest state appointments for us.
You might have wondered why social media, and especially Twitter, has been ablaze with the Nairobi National Park trending. Well, Pauline Njoroge is the reason. Pauline had in October last year published a post on social media questioning the economic value of the Nairobi National Park, suggesting its lack of importance. The same Pauline has ironically, less than 1 year later, found herself as a member of the Tourism Regulatory Authority for a period of 3 years. Her appointment is among several other appointments that have rubbed Kenyans the wrong way. Former Nairobi Speaker Alex Ole Magelo has been appointed to the board of the Kenya Leather Development Council, while former EACC Chair Halake Wako will now be heading the university's fund board. Former Tigania West Member of Parliament Kilemi Mwiria will chair the Kenya National Qualifications Authority. Other appointees include former Kajiado Senator Peter Ole Mositet to the Nairobi Metropolitan Area Transport Authority Board, KANU Secretary General Nick Salat to the Agricultural Development Corporation, while John Ngumi will be heading the Industrial and Commercial Development Corporation. Meanwhile, in an executive order, the President has established the Kenya Transport and Logistics Network, which will be tasked with the management, coordination and integration of the public port, railway and pipeline services in the country. The network will bring together the Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Railways Corporation and the Kenya Pipeline Company Limited, all under the Industrial and Commercial Development Corporation. But even with the Kenya National Qualifications Authority in place, many Kenyans still wonder what it takes to land a state job in this country. Ibrahim Karanja, KTN News.
All right, of course, in the latest development to that story is that the CS in charge of tourism, Najib Balala, revoked the appointment of Pauline Njoroge to that state corporation, replacing her with our very own Najma Ismail. Now, let me come to you, Dismas. What are your thoughts on these appointments, and especially the creation of the ICDC, the Industrial and Commercial Development Corporation, that will be taking care of port, rail, and pipeline operations in this country?
Well, thanks, Ben. There are so many questions which come to mind, and President Kenyatta has not taken time to manage expectations. Number one is, the first question is, why do we need to have one consolidated unit to manage the transport and logistics infrastructure in Kenya? Number two, is there any evidence, qualitative or quantitative, to suggest that if you consolidate these units, then they're going to perform? For instance, we should be given the numbers. Maybe the operational cost for all the organizations combined is 1 billion Kenya shillings per annum. And when you consolidate, it's going to be 300 million. So we are going to be having savings. So we have not been given that information. And in my view, this consolidation does not pass the suspicion test because of the Jubilee's track record. Wherever they come up with any project, we must be given sufficient information so that we can come to a conclusion. Right now, we have not been given any information to tell us that if you merge these units, then it's going to be for the benefit of Kenya. And then the third thing is, this consolidation, has it been subject to public participation? Are our members of the National Assembly and Senate alive to this? Is the relevant committees, the Budget Committee, the Transportation Committee, the Energy Committee, have they questioned, have they prosecuted this accumulated matter? And in the absence of that information, then Kenyans are in the right place to start casting aspersions on this move. So that's the first level. And then the second level is about the personalities who are managing the organization.
Right.
Now, when you're going to assume a public position like this, your reputation must be beyond reproach, like Caesar's wife. Now, we are told that a number of the people who've been appointed to these positions, there are allegations of mismanagement in the past. In other words, a number of them, apart from the military generals, a number of them, people have cast aspersions on the ability to manage these kind of transactions. Now, when you appoint these people with a questionable track record, then Kenyans have got that phobia that is this thing going to work? And finally, we must be told in black and white that at this consolidation, who is going to be a beneficiary? Is it going to be Mura? Is it going to be special interest groups? Or who is really, at the end of the day, who is the beneficiary? In other words, we have not been given the raison d'etre, as the French call it, the reason for this consolidation.
Right.
Because we know for a fact that Kenya Pipeline has had challenges, Kenya Ports have had challenges, the Railways Corporation has had massive challenges, and there is no evidence that now if you bring them under one roof, they're going to deliver for Mura.
All right. Chero, there has been accusations against the president that he is trying to re-centralize some of these things in a time that Kenyans expect the government to be, devolving services and things like that to every Kenyan in this country. What is your take on this?
Well, my take is that as President Uhuru Kenyatta continues to revel in his lame duck space for the next 760 odd days, he will do his best to bring the thieves together. When I look at the lineup, when you look at Ngumi, who was at Konza, and before that at, was it Stanbic, and all of those things, and he announced that he was soon going away, and next thing you know, he's been brought in under this ICDC space to consolidate ports and Kenya Railways and pipelines. First of all, even from a triple play perspective, how does this actually work? And the minute you start piecing it all together, you see that this is finally one of the ways that the thieves under one roof can continue for the last couple of years or so to siphon as voraciously as possible. Give you an example. Look at pipeline. They owe Zakem, the Lebanese firm, billions of shillings. Look at when Fernandez Barasa of Ketraco talked about 25 billion odd shillings to electrify the SGR as a separate proposition. And Atanas Maina, did he even know about it? When you begin to just dig a little bit, dig beneath the surface, you can see the trans-century boys are back. You can see that these are all the crony capitalists that have conveyanced a massive multi-billion, multi-trillion corruption over the years in this country. And you are right, this has nothing to do with Wanjiku. If we really wanted to consolidate corporations for purposes of ultimate service provision, wouldn't we be talking about things like electricity? Wouldn't we be talking about things like roads? But when you look and follow the pathway from Mombasa all the way to its conclusion, Kedong Ranch, which took quite a while to consolidate, but had been sorted out finally through the Nakuru Land Court, you can see that ultimately, whatever it is the president is talking about is for the benefit of a few. And these footsteps take it back also to the empire of his family. And if President Uhuru Kenyatta is not careful, he may be one of the first presidents that we will actually have to go after. We may not be able to touch him now while he's president, but trust me, the eating is so complete, the looting is so deep, the lawlessness is so entrenched that at some point, the people of Kenya will have to say, we want our resources back. So this is not unusual, but it is the excessiveness, the greed. It is absolutely incredible. So I do not understand the logic unless I was inside the crony capitalist collective and I understood how I was going to profit. And by the way, wasn't Chris Kirubi somewhere in ICDC ages ago? ICDC is not a new company. And we're going to see what happened. Eventually, we end up with the Russian system where state corporations were so run down and the oligarchs kick in because they get sold for a song. And you end up running these down and we shall move from this kleptocracy into an oligarchy. And so when you dig deeper, when you start thinking about it, beyond the general outrage around nepotism, incompetent people being assigned, the same people being recycled, you can trace it back to one or two or three or four entities that are the ultimate beneficiaries, and there's no Chebet, no Mora, no Wanjiko, no Nafula, nobody in that story.
All right. Mark Bichachi, talk to us about the Kenya Transport and Logistics Network. What is the ICDC supposed to achieve?
Ben, thanks for the question. First, I'd like to remind Kenyans that there was a paper done a few years ago around the consolidation of the parastatals we have around the country. In fact, last year, the Export Promotion Council was put together with what was known as the Brand Kenya Board to come up with the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency as an example. And I can tell you, not all of those things were put together for the simple reason of corruption or looting. That I can tell you as a matter of fact, because it's something that pre-existed even Uhuru Kenyatta. It is something that was first suggested during the Kibaki regime because we had too many parastatals doing too many things that didn't make sense or were in competition with each other. And that is something that will continue to happen. It should continue to happen because government efficiency is something that is needed badly by the Republic of Kenya. That said, we need to understand that one of the biggest hindrances to Kenyan business has been the cost of logistics and how to fluidly transport things from one side of the country to the other. Last year, for example, there was demonstrations in Naivasha over how bad the roads were. Now, the flower farms in Naivasha lost a cumulative almost 200 million shillings just trying to get their containers of flowers to Nairobi so that they could fly out of the country. So do we have a problem in terms of logistics in this country? Yes, we do. And we need to solve those problems? Yes, we do. And not everyone who's been appointed has a shady history. The people who've been appointed there who have quite a solid track record in terms of leadership and integrity in this country. If you look at the list of people who've been put there, you would find only a paltry number have claims of corruption. And that is the right of Kenyans to question why these people have been appointed. It is their right to want people who have a clean record to be appointed to positions, but it is also not right to cast the baby out with the bathwater. And yes, there's a lot of bathwater, but there's a baby here. And what is that baby? That is the baby that is going to solve the logistics problems in this country and finally put a way of understanding how do you get fuel, for example, instead of in a tanker filling our and getting it through the Kenya pipeline. And how do those agencies cooperate? How do they work together so that, for example, this can be more useful and give us more resources? Those are the kind of conversations we need to have, not just the conversations of suspicion, which, by the way, we have every right to have because of the history this country has had. But we should not throw away the baby with the bathwater. It is not a fact that everything is looted in Kenya pipeline. Otherwise, it will not be functioning. It is not a fact that everything is looted in Kenya Railways. It will not be functioning. There is looting in this country for sure, but let's also build on the good that is there and also look at what is possible.
Tell me this in 1 minute only, Mark. Dismas has said that there is no evidence that the centralization of these four state corporations, these state corporations into one, will lower the cost of rail, pipeline, and port logistics. What is your take on that? And the small matter that this executive order by the president means that the four corporations have been transferred to the National Treasury?
Well, two things. Number one, the National Treasury is a stakeholder in every parastatal in the country. That's by Kenyan law. That's why a member of Treasury sits in every board of every parastatal in the country. Number two, so that's not new. Number two, the fact is that logistics is a cooperative effort. If you look at any of the big logistics companies, they will look at the sea, rail, air, and transport sector and see how to synergize. That's how DHL works. That's how Maersk works. That's how all the big logistical firms work. And the truth is, when these firms work together and are able to complement their efforts, then we should see a reduction in cost. The only time we will not see a reduction in cost is when they do what Jerotich has said they will do. If going there to steal, as has happened with Kenya Airways or other such agencies, then we will see the price not going down. But if they do the right thing, and I pray they do, because sometimes that happens, then we will see a reduction, because that's how logistics works.
Dismas, do you agree with that? Do you predict that we will see a reduction in demonstrations down at the coast by truckers and transport stakeholders? Are they going to be more satisfied moving forward, in your opinion?
I take a divergent view. First of all, there is no evidence to suggest today that Kenya Ports Authority in Mombasa has adopted the best practices in the world and is a model that you're having other ports from all over the world coming to study how we do business in Mombasa. There is no evidence to suggest that Kenya Pipeline Corporation, which is a monopoly, has adopted the best practices and they're super efficient. Then also there's no evidence that if you bring them under one roof, they're going to be super efficient. The rational and logical thing to do is to ensure that as a standalone items, they are super efficient that you get people from Strathmore University, University of Nairobi, Yale, Harvard, going to study Kenya Pipeline, and now they're super efficient. Going to study Kenya Ports Authority, and now they're super efficient. Going to study the Railways Corporation, and now they're super inefficient. So that if you bring them under one roof, then they're going to be super efficient. It's going to be a best practice in the world. There is no evidence of that today.
All right.
You know, what Mark Bishachi is saying, today we should be told that the operational cost for the three agencies is 1 billion. And we've consolidated them, it's going to be 3 billion. And these are the benefits which are going to be transferred to the clients, to the customers. We don't have that information, which is why any rational Kenyan must deal with this suspicion. And then the next thing, this thing has not been subjected to public participation or consultation. The members of the National Assembly or Senate are the ones who will be required to amend the relevant acts. That one is not even in motion. So in my view, we must be told in black and white, what is the rationale? Who is going to be the principal beneficiary at the end of the day? Is it the consumer who is paying huge logistics costs, or maybe you have cartels and special interest groups? In the absence of that clarity of information, then Kenyans are supposed to be asking questions, who is the principal beneficiary? Because, you know, if this thing is going to be of benefit to the public, then why don't you have a public participation? If you don't want Mura to participate because she may not understand the complicated issues, then the relevant committees in the houses must be alive to this. And you know, right now, Jubilee, for the last 7 years, have been coming up with 1 million projects. And at the end of the day, the beneficiaries are not really Kenyans. We are told that SGR today is a disaster. But when they were pushing it, we were told it's God's gift to Kenya. You know, we've had all those projects. So we must be given information, quantitative and qualitative. In the absence of that, then we'll stand guarded and we'll have the phobia of the Lord in us.
So many questions, so many pointers to talk about. We can talk about this all day, and we will continue to do that. Chero, I have the final say on this, but tell us, give us your thoughts quickly on what stood out for you in the other appointments, and specifically the appointment of Pauline Njoroge into the Tourism Authority Board, and 24 hours later, a revocation of the same.
You know, I had already read Pauline Njoroge's statements about the utility of the Nairobi National Park a while ago. So it was with great surprise that I read of her appointment, and it also went to show how little due diligence is actually done when you're going ahead to appoint certain individuals to sit on boards. In actual fact, from where I sit, if that thorough audit is not done, and then a very hastily and almost rude memo retracting based on public pressure comes out the following day, actually reflects back on CS Balala and the complete ineptitude of his ministry. Because in the first instance, somebody like Pauline Njoroge should never have been appointed. And when you see the nepotism, when you see the conflict of interest, you know that these are just spaces. When you look at Kalonzo's family members in Iala and now in other, you just know that this is just a question of how to perpetuate family members' networks across these areas. So it just speaks to, for me, the incompetence of ministries and the politicization of these types of selections. And even if people say, oh, perhaps Pauline Njoroge has since changed her mind, as far as I'm concerned, if you sit on a board, your spirit, past and present, in terms of how you have articulated your knowledge or issue or interest or concern or support for an issue, will be judged no matter when. You can't say, I said that last year, I don't mean it anymore. Then people say, okay, fine, you're forgiven. But I just want to end, Ben, by saying, I talked about triple play earlier. If we come back to this consolidation, and I cannot underscore enough what Dismas was also talking about. If you look at, for example, the Alliance Corporation that is run out of Fort Worth in Dallas, Texas, it's a Perot family empire. That's also different because this is not crony capital. This is business.
Right.
You look and they have air, railway, roads. You have to have logic to build a big, profitable, successful consolidation. And that's why I say from the beginning, is Kenya a single corridor country? They spillage, they siphoning. What is pipelines doing here? So when you look at the configuration of this so-called logistics infrastructure, you know that this is not really about making things better for the end user. It is not at all, or for the interim user.
Okay.
This is about other things, and it's about looting and stealing. And that's my opinion on all of this.
Thank you. Let's leave that at that. Let's take a quick commercial break here on Inside Politics on KTN News. Don't go too far. When we come back, we shall be getting into some politics. Jubilee Party Vice Chairman David Murathe, in an exclusive interview on KTN News, has said that the country should prepare for a Raila Odinga presidency come 2022. Is that the majority party's endorsement? What do you think about it? Stay with us.
Hakuna kundi ambaye inaungana kupinga mtu fulani. Sisi zote tunataka kuona kwamba KANU imebaki imara. KANU imebaki kama imeungana kabisa tukielekea kwa uchaguzi mkuu. Tumesema ya kwamba hatutaki huu mchujo itenganishe chama. Tunataka wanachama wetu wapate fursa ya kuchagua kwa njia ya haki yule ambaye atachukua tikiti yetu kuelekea kwenye uchaguzi mkuu. Kitu ambaye tumepinga ni kulazimishwa au kushurutishwa kufuata mtu fulani.